images now on the screen? This is the cover of the book. Yes? Okay. Wonderful. Um, so any observations or questions about it? Hopefully it'll work. So that's just the cover, which I was very lucky. The press um, came up with the image themselves, and I thought it worked beautifully. And I love the little touch they did with the different colors of words in the title. But what I really want to get to is some pictures of my sister Dory, and some of them will have me in them as well. And since this is a book called Our Bodies Are Mostly Water, and my sister was very much a sort of mermaid. She loved water and she loved sunlight. And so this is one of the pictures of her very young, standing in water. And I keep unearthing things every time I move slides and old pictures and old films that I didn't even know I had. It's almost like a treasure hunt, I guess. Maybe that's what happens when you're someone like me who doesn't actually keep everything very organized. I'll be like, what's in this back box? Oh, it's old family pictures. So this is a picture of Dory when she was very little. And I'm just going to double check the time. Um, yeah, I might as well get started. So I very deeply believe that when we are experiencing grief, which frankly I think is the human condition, because it's not just about whether you've lost a loved one, but also retirement is its own kind of grief, and moving, even if it's the right thing, carries grief. And for me, writing about my sister as she was dying was kind of a survival thing, and then afterwards as well. And um, I will also preface the reading with um, some of these things are so vulnerable. I was very vulnerable in some of these things that I wrote, sections, prose poems, short bits of prose. And I think that's pretty normal for a writer, that when you put yourself out there, there are going to be times then when you reread it and you think, oh my God, other people can see this. So I've tried to choose some that are a balance of those two things. And I want to start with my favorite thing. Anyone who met my sister actually knows this, that when she laughed or giggled, you could not help it. You were going to laugh along. So this is called Ode to Her Giggle. Stone skipping across the bright water until you lose count, marveling that it could go on so long. Faceted crystals in all the colors and none, splitting and condensing light so deftly even the sun was jealous. Iced tea with fresh mint from the garden in July, fireflies coming out of her mouth. A Stevie Wonder song so contagious you're lifting your aging joints before you even notice. Flying down a hill on the best sled anyone ever imagined. Champagne that never makes you drunk, just fizzy forever. And that really was her giggle. It was incredible. You could not, and you didn't know what would set her off. In fact, she and my stepdaughter had a very similar sense of humor. So she came up with the idea, because my husband Andy will not have an iPhone, has to be an Android phone. She called it, oh, you have an Android phone. And then she and my stepdaughter giggled for like half an hour. And then days later, they giggled about it again. That was just an incredible gift. Uh, this is her holding my brother John when he was a baby. She was 6 years old, and she had declared, apparently, this was before I came along, that he was her baby. She always wanted her own babies, and it just did not work out for her. And that was one of the big sorrows of her life. So this is called If I Never Had Anything Good, I Wouldn't Mourn It. Every morning I wake to music in my head. Today it is, oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling, and the birds fall and rise from the grass under the feeder, a flock of diminutive pine siskins punctuated by cardinals. My family sang, not for performance, but for joy. Rounds at home and in the barn, the melody hard to hold if I was the only one on my strand, and folk songs and even hymns. Carols at Christmas, sometimes with friends piled into station wagons and stopping in to sing and drink hot cider at others' houses. We had our darknesses too, like anyone. The crash of my father's anger and the lost sweet notes of the farm when he made us leave it for town. 40 years later, and everyone knows I will never get over that leaving. And now her clear voice silenced, and how did I never think to record her? She hated pictures of herself, but consented in her last months. She would have let me capture her talking, though by the time we knew she was dying, she could not gather the breath to sing. Christmas again soon, and her favorite carol is already whispering at the edges like fog. Lo, how a rose ere blooming, she sang. And there are the cardinals again, bright red against the brown grass. And yes, I come from a family where you have a favorite Christmas carol, of course. This is that farm I love so much. And I came across this picture and I thought, well, I have to show people because in my mind, it was heaven, it was paradise. And when I see the picture, I'm like, well, we had a very old tractor, even for the 70s. I think the tractor might have been from the 40s. And it was flat. And yeah, but to me, it was paradise. So that's the picture um, of what our house looked like. I'm going to just move ahead to the next one, which is more fun. My sister is the one with the dark hair, and her best friend, Kathy, is there with the white hat. And at some point, they did sort of overturn in the sleigh because the horse wasn't really that used to pulling it. It wasn't like there was snow on the ground that you could use a sleigh like that in central Illinois in the 70s for very long to practice. But it was a hilarious story because nobody got hurt. This one is called What Fun Thing Are You Going to Do Today? She asked me on the phone nearly every day, what fun thing are you going to do today? She made me answer. Laundry, I'd say sometimes just to tease her. Nope, that's not fun. Not even if I'm out of clean underwear? Gross, don't even tell me. Let's just say I'd start. No, she'd shriek. No. Andy will be happy when he gets home. And we'd laugh, and she wouldn't know that was my fun thing, making her laugh. But seriously, she'd say, tell me, and laundry doesn't count. That's just the most amazing question I think anyone can ask you, right? What fun thing are to remind you you should do at least one fun thing every day. Um, I just, and I've never been able to be that kind of person, right? I'm thinking about the things that I have to get done, the stuff that I should be doing. That's sort of my mindset. And she was just this totally opposite person. I suppose we needed each other's strengths. So she is the one leading the horse. I'm on the horse. This was when I was so little. We did classes for very young kids where you're not actually riding on your own. Though I imagine by that age I could easily have done it. A, a story in my family was that not long after I'd started to walk, my mother took me to the pediatrician and said, yeah, she was walking, but then she fell off a horse and she stopped trying to walk. And he said, oh, well, a fall off of a rocking horse isn't going to make that much difference. And my mom, I just wish I could go back in town back in time and see his face when she said, oh, no, it was a real horse. Not a pony either, because actually, if you know anything about ponies, most of the time you should trust the big horse. The pony is always trying to get a little bite in or just do something kind of naughty. So, yes, Dory led me in the show ring, and obviously I got some kind of ribbon, although my guess is it was probably for participation. Okay. Um, I numbered my bookmarks so I'd know what order I wanted to read in. And if you see a cat's tail going across the screen, it's just one of my cats. She has to be involved whenever I'm on too. This part is called Doctors. My sister, not usually timid, follows the rules when talking to her oncologist. You may ask a question, but do not press for explanations. Is surgery or radiation possible for the masses in my abdomen? No, ma'am, he said, shaking his head. I was not there, or I would like to think I would have pressed, pushed, shoved until we knew. Couldn't they make her feel a little better before she dies? After all, I was the one who had asked during that first diagnosis when we heard the masses in her lungs had proliferated, alighted in more and more spots. What's the prognosis? How much more time does she have? As if to say it twice was to get ahead somehow of the answer. As if having the massive weight of her mortality dropped all at once could rule out fear. As if all the questions don't come down to why every time. It's worse not to know. She lives in a small town. There are worse oncologists, like the one who, faced with more symptoms than just her severe anemia, said, not my problem. Her diagnosis delayed by months. My head feels like a can of pennies when I think about it, but she will not let anger rule her. She is too tired. She has lost so much weight that she must buy all new clothes. When she told me this, she said the doctor spoke with regret, his brows pushed together. I held my phone to my ear, imagined his forehead furrowed like a plowed field in central Illinois where she lives and the farmers grow corn one year, soybeans the next. I wanted to punch him then, not for the news, but for the imprecision of it. When our mother went from pancreatic cancer, she hit her 6 month mark almost exactly. Shouldn't there be rules for doctors too, to tell the most accurate and complete truth they can? And she did actually have reason to sue doctors. The first doctor she went in to talk to about her symptoms, feeling sick to her stomach, uh, out of breath, told her that if she just went on a keto diet, then everything would be fine. She was overweight, more so than obviously in this picture where I think she looks lovely, but she would have said at that age, maybe her early 20s that she was overweight then too. Um, but yeah, that's what happens, as I'm sure a lot of you know, particularly to women and to people who carry extra weight. That doctors can be dismissive. They don't always listen. And that I think happens no matter what country you live in. Anyway, this was out at Allerton Park, this wonderful big place not far from Champaign-Urbana. It had been a rich guy's big estate with all these paths and acres and beautiful statues from all different time periods. And we used to go cross country skiing. You couldn't do downhill skiing out there. It was cross country because even though it had a tiny hill for sledding, it was only for cross country. And yes, that's me on the ground laughing. I assume my mother had the camera, but I do remember they teased me a lot about how often I fell down. Sometimes it was just that Dory made me laugh and I stopped focusing and I fell over. It's all her fault. This piece is called While Standing on Your Head. Before the babysitter came, my mother often said, if she tells you to stand on your head and sing the Spangled Banner backwards, you do it. I hoped she wouldn't because I couldn't sing that song even forwards. And though I thought I could stand on my head, it was only for a little while. For 9 months, between my sister's diagnosis and her death, I shredded my worry like a tissue and reshaped it into anything else when I spoke to her. I made her laugh and it made me proud. I knew she was caring for me as well, doing the hard work of dying while still singing so others could hear. Um, she was, and if you've read the book or bits of it, she worked as a pastor. She started her own equine therapy place so that everything she did really through her whole life was caring and helping. And she had an incredible way of actually listening. Oh, or making me laugh. This one, I'm sorry, I'll come back to my story, but this one, she met me as I came off the airplane at Reagan National Airport wearing those and actually allowed me to take a picture of her in front of the. So, when it got to be that time when you could put a picture in for someone who called your cell phone, that, of course, was her picture. But anyway, she also was just one of those people who she could go into a hospital room and just sit down with people she'd never met and just be quiet and listen and take on what they were dealing with, you know, their own health issues, the family's responses, all of that in ways that I have never been able to do because I get so self-conscious and then I just start to sort of talk. That's kind of what you do when you're a writer or professor. But she was just really good at going in and being present. So there we go. That's one of her with her horse um, at the equine therapy center that she set up later. This is called The Person We Need. Celebrities die all the time, and we mourn what more they could have given to the world. I get songs stuck in my head, but if I tell my sister, she doesn't know them, willfully ignorant of pop culture. I tease her, but I love that she fills her head with other material, old and new human stories, the right environment for different plants, the names of other people's children. There are so many things I don't understand, including the ways to talk to teenagers in trouble or people who are about to lose a loved one, or that dying loved one. Things she does without self-consciousness or even much effort. The irony, the person we need now that my sister is dying is my sister. Who wants to live forever? The rest of the words aren't right, but the tune is, and that's how I feel when I'm fumbling through, talking to her on the phone now, early in her dying, perhaps a year to go, according to the doctors. I'm not always getting the words right, but the tone works, and she gets that, even as her own tone, as she says goodbye every time, is too gentle. A hand on my shoulder telling me I'll be okay. One of the things that occurred to me as I was working on this book was how to put it together. I wanted it to be prose rather than poetry because there are people who might benefit from knowing that you can write whole books about your grief, but who would be very turned off or frightened by poetry, having had it beaten into their heads in high school, some of them, that there's always a deeper meaning, and if you don't get it, you're in trouble. Uh, so I was writing things sometimes with line breaks, um, sometimes just chunks, paragraphs, and I wasn't sure how to put it together. And I just want to bring this up for those of you who might be working on your own projects. And I have a good friend who said, why don't you just make it sort of like a collage? Throw in everything. Don't worry about how it's going to go in. Don't worry about it being in chronological order. So there are pieces in all different orders throughout. And I find as I was looking through it again, trying to decide what to share, that there are images and themes and memories and ideas that I return to throughout the book. It's not like, okay, that one's done and I can't come back to it. And so that bit about, the person we need, that's like halfway through the book. And yet I say in it, early in her dying. And that's the other thing that I realized later on. Time kind of goes out the window, right? It all kind of jumbles together when you're grieving or when you're dealing with something really intense. So if you're working on a piece of writing, let's say about, well, really about anything, but I think in particular about grief, don't think you have to fit into anything already established, a form that's already established, for example, um, or a timeline, although that would be one way to organize it. But for me, it ended up being, I went forward and back throughout the whole book because I think that's how we deal with things that are complicated. Okay. Let's see, what's the next picture? Oh, yeah. So if she wasn't hiding, I told you she hated pictures of herself. If she wasn't hiding behind a horse, she was hiding behind me. um, and so this one is called But I Would Not Give Up This Burden. I carry her bones in my bones, her pain in my nerves, the distant sound of the ocean in my ears. After she died, I smashed my right knee, and now I mirror the twisted move she made after her popped ligament on the softball field all those years ago. Always calm in pain, she told us when her cancer-hollowed bones ached, in the same way you might announce you'd like water with dinner. I carry her heart in my body, but I am not yet ready to listen to its tales. I can only bear to tell my own tales about her, and I knew more than most. Once upon a time, a curly-haired, laughing girl walked a garden maze with no exit. She helped anyone she came across, picking apples for the rat people and brushing burrs from the horse people's manes. They all loved her, but sometimes when the dark came, they let her struggle on alone. And then she left, and no one knew what to do. My tales don't always omit her specific suffering, the children she never had, the carousel of rejection. I carry her voice in my throat, but I cannot speak all her truths or all her lies. I carry my grief in my hands, and they mostly do what is needed, but oh, they ache. More horse ones. I like this one, especially because she's just got her scarf around the horse's neck. Like he's gonna do what she asks him to do, and she knows it. So we don't have to worry about, a halter or lead rope or whatever. It's just her scarf, which is just very, very, very cute picture. Oh, um, and this one is she got us giggling. We were in public at an ice cream joint, frozen custard joint, and she got me laughing so hard that I could hardly even breathe. You could see how much she was laughing, and our good friend, sort of sister friend, Dorothy, was laughing too, but she had the fortitude or the foresight to take a photo of the two of us as we're just giggling in the middle of public. And that's what Dory would do. She was amazingly good at that. Um, I'm just gonna add one piece. So I'm gonna do this one and then the last one. And again, as I said at the beginning, if you're grieving someone or something, please feel free to put it in the comments. Nobody is required to respond or anything, but we are together in being human, in wanting our grief to be witnessed. So this piece is called Time Travel. And actually, I've read an article recently about quantum physics, and I do not, I'm a poet, I don't get physics, but the suggestion, the implication was that just as quantum particles affect each other when they are far apart in distance, that they might also affect each other when they're far apart in time. And I'm so enamored of that idea because I think maybe sometimes we get through the hardest stuff because we sent some strength back to ourselves. Maybe that's crazy. Anyway, this is called time travel. I go back to when she was a young child who sang made up songs detailing her day to our mother. I'm a ghost, an imprint of the future, a whisper only she can hear. You're special, I say. Your imagination and joy, your voice and your spirit, keep that always. It is beautiful. You're beautiful. This is before the boys bully her, try to get her to pull down her pants to show them what a girl looks like. Before she decides she will eat enough to become big so no one will bully her again. Before she falls off the top of a slide, her first head injury. What was lost with each successive injury? Little girl, 16-year-old, early 40s, and at least three more from car accidents and falling off a horse again in her 50s. What brilliance did the world miss because of a brain shaken and bruised? Girlhood made such easy A grades that her teachers marveled. I cannot stop the injuries, not the one when our horse, my favorite, my mother's horse, a big chestnut who didn't mean to fall on her, who tried so hard to avoid hurting her that she did live, tripped going over a jump, not the others when cars hit her car, or when she slipped and fell on the bathroom tile because she was trying to get to the ringing phone. I cannot stop what happened to her or change what she chose, but I still go back to whisper encouragement. I float through the years and a light in an ordinary room with dust hanging in the sunbeams, and I say what I can. I go back to when our grandmother and our parents decided she was too fat, a young teenager who had an eating problem. When she eats the chocolate covered sawdust that are her diet bars, I whisper, "You are still beautiful. You are always beautiful. You are worthy of love. You are worth everything good, just as you are, just as you always will be." I do not know if she hears me. I only know years and years of men who dismiss her, treat her sometimes like a friend and sometimes like a lover. Years of her pining for men who keep her at arm's length while taking all the comfort she's willing to give. The final years with a husband who yells at her and denies yelling, whose anger laps at her ankles and then her knees and sometimes her neck. The last 9 months of her life when he finally realizes what he's losing don't make up for 10 years. What is lost when a woman undervalues herself, when men undervalue her, when even her family undervalues her? I go back, I go back, I go back. If time isn't really linear, we just experience it that way, then I can be there telling her everything she needs to know. You are beautiful. Your life matters. You do good just by being in the world. You deserve every joy you get. Your love will buoy others in ways you may never even know. This is her dancing at the big surprise celebration we threw for my brother, the one she was holding in that picture when she was 6, when he turned 50. And our nephew, who was always right along beside her, enjoying the fun. You'll see my nephew there again, photobombing us at another relative's wedding, and I just love that he did. It. We didn't know. He just snuck in. Um, and yes, over the years, we got to look more and more like each other, and I came to realize how much I looked like her. Uh, Again, wearing a silly hat just to make us laugh. Um, I think those bunny ears belonged to one of our nephews, and she put them on. I mean, they did match her outfit, so you have to appreciate that. Uh, this was in August 2019, and she died in early December. We were visiting um, our niece and her spouse, and it was absolutely wonderful trip. But Dory got tired and had to sit down sometimes when the rest of us were taking a walk or whatever. And this picture, I can't help it. I'm a poet, so it's the whole, I can see that she's already part in shadow. I'm part in light. And that stuck with me. It was cold in the Pacific, even in August, but she went into the water. She brought her, I mean, she tried to get me in there. No way. It was way too cold. And you can see she's laughing. She's uh, waiting. She obviously waited out far enough that the waves came and got her completely soaking wet. And yeah, she enjoyed herself to the end. And then the last picture, it's at the same beach, same outfit you could see from the last one, but I used some photo editing stuff and turned it into more of a painting. And It's kind of quintessentially who she was at the end. So I'll just read one more piece. This is towards the end of the book. Everything will be all right. I woke from a dream in which I could see the dead. They were as real as the living. My sister sat beside me, her arms around me. She smelled like roses and hay. She said, "Everything will be all right." She spoke in her gentlest voice, the voice she used when she called me at work 20 years ago to tell me my sweet red dog, Mick, had died. The specialist vet had taken him in for an MRI and he had gone into a rest, and they had to know that minute if they should keep trying to revive him. They had called, and she had made that decision. She had spared me that. She had loved me that much. She always had. In the dream, she held me and said everything would be all right.